Hey folks, in the last video I talked about how to still stay lean or lose weight while still enjoying alcohol. In this video I'm going to do the same thing when it comes to sugar and carbohydrates. Hello everybody, Matt Schifferly for RedDeltaProject.com. Now before I dive into today's video, I have to address a single point that kept coming up in the comments on yesterday's video when you're saying, well, the easiest solution is to just not drink. Like, just don't drink. That's the easiest way to go about it. That's the best results and so on. And yes, we could make the argument that's saying, well, just don't ever drink. Abstain from alcohol. That's your best result. But when you've worked with people for years like I have, you understand that some people that works, going cold turkey and saying just don't drink, or in this case for carbohydrates, don't eat processed sugar and stuff, is a viable solution. It is something they're willing to do. And if that's your case, go for it. But if you're not willing to do that, or if you can't do it for whatever reason, that idea of just do such and so is a really bad plan, because we get stuck into this idea where it's like one or the other. It's either all in or all out. It's that all or nothing mentality that I always say is so toxic. And when we think it has to be all or nothing, that idea is far more detrimental and toxic than any amount of alcohol or carbohydrate or junk food you'll ever consume. So the point of this video and the last video is, if you find yourself in this situation where you're saying, I can't go to that length, or I'm not willing to, does that mean I'm screwed? And the answer is absolutely not, because if you use these tips, you can still make progress. And that's the key. So first and foremost, plan your carbohydrate intake during the day when you seem to be the most active. So for example, if you have a morning workout, like 10 a.m., let's say, maybe plan a little bit more of your carbohydrates that you want to eat during your lunch period. So that way you're helping to replenish the glycogen stores you used in your workout. Remember, sugar isn't fattening. Carbohydrate isn't fattening. It's consuming more of it than your body needs that's fattening. So if you can plan to consume it around physical activity, then you're replenishing your stores that you've lost instead of just getting it stored as fat. Tip number 2 is consume sugar in more of a natural form. So we're talking things like fruits, vegetables, plant-based foods, things like this. It's still very much a processed carbohydrate. And people tell me all the time, like, I don't eat any simple sugars. I'm like, you're eating an apple. So you don't let your apples ripen, because the ripening process of fruits is processed carbohydrate. That's what ripening is. It's when fiber breaks down into simple sugars. That's what happens when a fruit ripens. So take fruit as one of your main carbohydrate sources or sugar sources, because that's still going to satisfy the palate. It's going to give you something nice and juicy. If you have it refrigerated, it's nice and cool, very good palatability, gives you some fruit, but it's also not giving you this sugar bomb that you might get with more highly processed foods like candy and sweets and sugars and stuff, like sodas and stuff. And you're still getting your sweet tooth satisfied, but you're doing it from more of a natural form, which is going to be inherently a little bit less and more holistic for you. Tip 3 is, again, look at portion sizes. Just because you're consuming simple carbohydrate doesn't mean it has to be this huge amount of it. So if you like a little bit of chocolate, then by all means have some chocolate, but you don't need this massive king-size candy bar. Having a couple of like dark squares of dark Dove chocolate or so, if that's enough to satisfy, do that. Because as you get more in tune to what you really need to satisfy your palate, you'll probably find that you don't need as much as we often think we do. Sometimes when we overconsume, it's because we're eating on autopilot. We're watching a movie. We're not really even paying attention to the food we have. And then we look down and we've eaten way more than we intended to. And then lastly is get your physical activity level up. Remember, carbohydrate is something we use as fuel. So if you're exercising on a daily basis and burning off that sugar and carbohydrate, the sugar and carbohydrate you consume, again, will be used to replenish your glycogen stores rather than burning or turning more into. So I hope that gives you some things to think about. Let me know your questions down below. Check out these videos for more as well. Till then, be fit, live free.